Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the webinar about the COVID-19 Relief Fund. I'm going to get started. Before I get started, though, I want to let you know that Zoom does offer auto captioning for this program. So if you need captioning, you can see it at the bottom of your Zoom window. Just click on captioning and you'll have the option to show or hide captioning. And I think we'll get into the next slide. So I'm Jen Lawless, the Operations Director at the Mass Cultural Council. I'm joined this afternoon by Dan Blask, who you'll hear from momentarily. And then also taking part today is Carmen Plazas and Timothy Afam, who will be helping with the chat and the Q&A. So I'm going to let you know the plan today. So we're going to have some introductions. We're going to do the program background and overview. We're going to talk about eligibility and the application and the timeline. And then in terms of questions, we do not have the chat feature turned on. So as you have questions throughout the presentation, you can enter them into the Q&A. And when we get to the questions portion, Timothea will read out the questions for Dan to answer. We will try to address all the questions, but if for some reason we don't get to yours, please absolutely feel free to email or call Dan after the session is over. And we'll try to answer all your questions as you're working on the application. So I want to tell you a little bit about the program, but I also wanted to just take a minute and you know, to say that the past year has been hard is an understatement. You know, everyone is dealing with the impacts of the pandemic, the economic fallout from the pandemic, and also, you know, racism and injustice. It's been a really difficult year, and we recognize the burden and the challenges that all of you face as artists and educators. And despite all those burdens, you're still making art, you're still telling stories, you're still teaching and educating. And I just want you to know that the work you're doing is incredibly important, if not more important than ever. And we value your work incredibly. The work you do is valuable, and no matter where you are in your career, no matter where you live in the state, no matter what discipline you work in, we just want you to know that the Mass Cultural Council values you, and you all merit funding. We wish we could fund every single artist and educator who applies to this program. Unfortunately, we don't have those funds, so we've taken the approach to try to make this as simple and as the least burden as possible for you in terms of your time and your investment in the application, and also to make sure that funds can get out quickly. So I just want to start off by thanking you for the work you do and letting you know it is incredibly important. So, you know, in terms of the program background, it was clear right away that artists and individual educators were really hit hard by the pandemic. So weeks into the pandemic, our first survey showed 2.89 million in lost personal income. So that spurred the launch of our program. You know, we've done additional surveying and we know that the lost income is up to 20 million, but we also know that's just really a sliver of the impact it's had financially on artists. So the next slide is, there we go. So this is the program to offer some relief funding. Last cycle, we distributed approximately 300,000 in direct grants. We're running a second cycle. This cycle, the grants are going to be $1,500, and we expect to award at a minimum 460 grants, but likely additional if we're able to apply some additional funds to it. So after the deadline, grants are awarded through a randomized lottery style process to eligible applicants. And again, that's the approach we took in lieu of asking you for 45 pages of detailed information about your finances, your history, you know, other factors to try to evaluate need. And so I think at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dan, who's going to talk about eligibility.
Thanks so much, Jen. My name is Dan Blask. I've had the privilege of working with individual artists at Mass Cultural Council for the last 15 years. And it's also my privilege to work on the COVID-19 Relief Fund for Individuals program. I'm going to speak a little bit about the program eligibility. As Jen pointed out, we wanted to make this program and this application as simple and straightforward as possible. And so the eligibility is really one of the key aspects of the program. Once you meet the eligibility requirements, we hope that there's actually not that much more to it. So it's a very important aspect of the program. You are eligible to apply for the COVID-19 Relief Fund for Individuals if you are an individual artist working in any artistic discipline. So we define artist broadly to include, but not limited to, musicians, theater artists, photographers, puppeteers, craft artists, painters, poets and authors, vocalists, folk and traditional artists, dancers. We also include those folks who work in those fields in support capacities. So you may apply if you're an individual artist or an independent teaching artist, humanist, or scientist, typically working in schools or educational settings. So to continue the eligibility, to apply for this program, you need to meet 6 criteria. So you need to be 18 years of age or older, be a legal resident of Massachusetts. Now, we define legal resident by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue's definition of a full year resident of Massachusetts, which essentially means that you maintain an abode, you have an active lease or you own property in Massachusetts throughout the whole year, and that you spend 1 day more than half the year actually residing there. Now we know due to COVID-19 that there are sometimes more complicated situations, and if you have questions about residency, do get in touch with us. The next criteria is that you have reported taxable income from your work as an artist or teaching artist, humanist, or scientist in your most recent tax return. And the income from your work as an artist or teaching artist, humanist, or scientist represented more than 25% of your gross income in at least one tax return in the last 3 years. So by that, what we mean is we understand that work as an artist or as a teaching artist, humanist, or scientist, sometimes there are changes from year to year. So let's say in 2019, it was a more difficult year. Your income as an artist or teaching artist, humanist, and scientist was 23%. But 2018, it was over 25%. So then you would be eligible. We just want one of the last 3 years for you to have met that 25% level. The next criteria is that you can demonstrate that you have lost more than $1,500 in income related to work as an artist or teaching artist, humanist, or scientist, directly related to COVID-19 cancellations, closures, etc. The last criteria is that you did not receive an award from this program in fiscal year 2020, the awards that we made in April 2020. If you did receive an award then, we are glad to have funded you, and we hope your work continues to be going well, but unfortunately you're not eligible to apply this year. I want to note a couple of things. So I mentioned that you need to attest that you've lost $1,500 at least in income due to COVID-19. So income that could be recouped through Massachusetts unemployment benefits is not eligible for this program. So let's say you were a staff at a cultural agency, you were laid off and you were able to get Massachusetts unemployment benefits for that income. Unfortunately, you're not eligible to apply to this program to recoup that income. Now that said, the Federal CARES Act did create a special unemployment fund, the Pandemic Unemployment Assistance benefits that were special for gig workers and other workers who were not normally able to apply for regular unemployment benefits. So if you received benefits or are receiving benefits through Federal CARES Act related funding, you are eligible to apply for this program. I should mention that it is possible that if you are selected as a recipient of this grant, it may affect your benefits, and you would need to check with the Department of Unemployment Assistance to see what that might be. Now, we ask that you attest that your income that you receive income as an artist or teaching artist, scientist, or humanist, that your income is above 25% in at least one of the last 3 years, and that you have lost more than $1,500 from that income related to COVID-19 related cancellations and closures, but we don't actually ask for documentation. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more in a minute. The last thing I want to mention is that these grants are unrestricted. We hope that they will help mitigate some of the losses and help support you in your work as it goes forward. I'll talk a little bit about the application itself. Pardon me. We are currently accepting applications. You can find the application at mass.gosmart.org. Probably the easiest way to find it is to go to massculturalcouncil.org, our site. If you click on the Art and Artists header, you will find the different programs for artists. And the COVID-19 Relief Fund for Individuals will be one of those programs. You can find the link to the online application in the guideline page, in the application process page. The deadline to apply is February 2nd at the stroke of midnight. And what is in that application form? As I mentioned, the eligibility is a key aspect. So the first thing that you'll be asked to do in the application is to confirm the eligibility requirements. Beyond that, we ask for a brief narrative summary of the impact that COVID-19 has had on your work as an artist or teaching artist, humanist, or scientist. We ask that you let us know the total income that you have lost due to cancellations and closures related to COVID-19. And we ask that you total the number of gigs, jobs, or sales opportunities that you have lost. Again, we don't ask you to provide documentation. We don't ask for tax returns, contracts, cancellation letters, but we do reserve the right to request that documentation at a later date in the rare case that a question might arise. So once you've submitted your application, you've done your work, now it's time for Mass Cultural Council's work. How will we decide the awards? So we will look at the total number of applications and figure out what proportion of applications came from which of 6 regions in the Commonwealth. Those regions are Greater Boston, Central, Metro West, Northeast, Southeast, and Western. We'll divide the total number of awards we have by those 6 regions based on the proportion of applications we received. And from there, we will select among the eligible applicants using a randomized lottery-style selection process. The timeline for this program is as follows. We are accepting applications now. The deadline is February 2nd. We will make an announcement of the results at approximately mid-February. and we'll send contracts to the awarded applicants in early March. And then we will begin the payment process of distributing those grants upon receiving the signed contract and paperwork. So these are the folks who are working on the COVID-19 relief fund for individuals. That includes those who are conducting the review. It also includes staff who built the application form and makes adjustments to it, staff that administers the data produced by the program, as well as staff that handles the contracts and distributes the grants when the time comes. Speaking of grants, while we have you here, we want to make sure that you know about other opportunities for artists from Mass Cultural Council, along with currently accepting applications in the COVID-19 Relief Fund for individuals. We are currently accepting applications for the Artist Fellowships Program. The Artist Fellowships are grants to recognize and support artistic excellence among Massachusetts artists. Currently, we're offering fellowships of $15,000 and finalist awards of $1,500. The grants are unrestricted. They are competitive, and we award them in 12 different disciplines, but 6 per year. So you can apply right now in the categories of crafts, dramatic writing, film and video, music composition, photography, and sculpture installations, new genres. Sculpture installation, new genres. The deadline to apply for artist fellowships is February 8th. If you are a teaching artist, humanist, or scientist, you may know about our STARS residency program. If not, I hope you'll investigate it. The STARS residencies offers grants to schools to support creative learning residencies in the arts, sciences, and humanities. The school is actually the applicant, but those residencies are developed in partnership with teaching artists, scientists, and humanists. In past years, this program has been first come, first serve, but this year we actually have an application window, so things are a little different. We will begin accepting applications on January 27th, and there will be a deadline for applications of February 1st. I also want to let you know about our online resource for artists. It's called ArtSake. It's a place where we hope to support and advance the work of Massachusetts artists. Every week, we round up a list of opportunities that include contests, grants, opportunities to publish and exhibit, workshops, and other opportunities for artists. We also, on ArtSake, offer articles with tips, advice, and we have a section of the site called the Creative Space Classifieds. So if you need to find or list creative space for your creative work, let's say you need a studio, or let's say you have a creative space to lease, you can create a free ad on the Creative Space Classifieds and know that you'll reach the audience of Massachusetts artists. Another opportunity I want to mention to you is if you are looking for work in arts and culture, we have a website called higherculture.org, which is a database of cultural employment opportunities. So definitely something to check out. And I want to make sure that people know they can sign up for our Artist News e-newsletter, which we send monthly. It includes all of Mass Cultural Council's news, opportunities, dates, and deadlines for artists. And you can sign up by going to massculturalcouncil.org and clicking on the e-newsletter link. And now I would love to hear any questions that folks might have about the COVID-19 relief fund for individuals. Okay, so I found one question in the Q&A. It's referencing getting the pandemic unemployment assistance. So it is a little bit, I just want to clarify, there is the pandemic unemployment assistance is essentially a special unemployment assistance program. If you are receiving the pandemic unemployment assistance, that's the one that was funded by the Federal CARES Act, you actually are eligible to apply for the COVID-19 relief fund for individuals. The regular Massachusetts unemployment benefits, if that's where the income that you would apply for, if you are receiving benefits from regular unemployment assistance programs for that lost income, you wouldn't be able to apply for that. But the special PUA benefits, yes, you are in fact eligible.
And then just to add on to Dan, so I see the last part is how does this grant affect PUA? And so that is something where, having talked to past recipients, there was a question about that, and we found that the unemployment office can best explain how that might impact your benefits, whether it replaces a benefit like payment or part of a benefit payment for a week or not. The unemployment office is really the best person to ask directly. And if you were awarded a grant, you would have time to find out the answer to that question before you had to decide whether to accept it or not. So I would say throw your hat in the ring, and then there'll be time to sort out whether or not you want to accept it should you be one of the randomized selected grantees.
Thank you, Jen. This is Dan again. There was another question about how loss, if you're not uploading tax returns, how are you demonstrating loss? Well, it's really, in a sense, it's more that you are attesting to the number of opportunities you've lost and the total amount that you've lost. And you have the capacity to demonstrate it should we ask for it. But no, it's true. We don't ask you to upload tax returns. We don't ask you to upload contracts or other documentation. In the off chance that there is a question later, we reserve the right to request it at a later point, but it's not part of the application process. And
just to be clear too, this is Jen again, we ask for the total income you've lost, and it's just your best estimate. And part of the reason we ask for your total rather than just having you attest to losing $1,500 is that income loss is what we use for advocacy, to advocate for more funding for artists. And then the total jobs lost. So that's become an important advocacy piece. So if you just estimate to your best ability the total lost income in the time period, and estimate the total number of lost jobs and gigs and opportunities, that's going to help us advocate for more resources. And as long as that number you enter is over 1,500, then you'll be eligible for funding.
Okay. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead, Dan.
I think while we have a pause, what I might do is open up the application just so folks can get a look at it.
And while you're opening it, I will just say someone asked if they applied for the last cycle, but were unsuccessful. They asked if they're allowed to apply this year. Absolutely. If you applied last cycle and were not successful, you should definitely apply this cycle. And then I would, well, Dan, while you're pulling that up, there's a question about regarding the total income gigs lost, is that projected or actual? We allow you to combine both because it's a little bit hard if you know you would have had been selling work at the annual event that happens in March and you are not able to do that, you know that's lost income. So, you know, for this purpose, it's acceptable to project, you know, what you typically would have taken in at that opportunity to sell your work. Because for this, as long as you can document actual cash losses of $1,500, that's it. So when we say retain your paperwork, we mean retain proof that you've lost $1,500. Beyond that, it's your best estimate of income loss, and that's primarily for advocacy purposes. So when we say retain documentation, it's really just for the 1,500. Beyond that, you don't have to like document every single, you don't have to worry about keeping records for 3 years about every single, all your lost income. So hopefully that helps clarify. And yeah, for this purpose, I think the focus would be for your Massachusetts income, but I don't know. That's, Dan, what do you think? I mean, the $1,500 minimum would have to be, I think, Massachusetts-based employers. Have you answered that question, Dan? Is lost income based on income lost through Massachusetts employers only? How have you answered that in the past? I should have let you field that one.
Oh, that's okay. So to be honest, what we've focused on is where the artist resides. And so we have not disallowed, say, gigs from out of state. So those could count to the 1,500 in the past.
Thank you. Sorry for confusing everyone. Sorry, Dan.
That's okay. Jen, can you see the webpage, the COVID-19 Relief Fund?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. So I'm just going to quickly show you where you can find the application form. Right now I'm on Mass Cultural Council's website, and I clicked through to Artists and Art and to the COVID-19 Relief Fund for Individuals application process. So please read these guidelines, and when you get to the how to apply, you'll see a section to create a username and password and to complete your individual profile. So if you click that, that will open up Mass Cultural Council's online form. If you happen to have already applied for an artist fellowship, you may already have a login and password, username and password. If you have not, you'll need to create a new profile. But I just wanted to show you what the application actually looks like. So I'm going to log in. When you log in, you'll see a list of current programs and applications. I mentioned the Artist Fellowship, so those will be at the top, A coming before C in the alphabet. But if you scroll down, you will see the COVID-19 Relief Fund for Individuals, and you can just start the application. As I mentioned, the first page is really just focused on your eligibility. And we ask that you verify that your information is correct, and then provide a brief summary of how COVID-19 has impacted you and your work. And then on the next page, you'll see we ask for the total amount of income you have lost related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And as I pointed out, must equal or exceed $1,500 to be eligible for the funding. And then to estimate the total number of jobs, gigs, and sales opportunities.
And just, Dan, if you could scroll to the top of the page, there is a question about what period of time the income should be reported. And I believe it's on the top of the page if you want to read that out.
Sure. So this includes all jobs gigs lost as early as March 1st, 2020, and as late as January 31st, 2021 that have already been canceled.
And Dan, this is Jen. Stephen has another question about PPP, and I'm wondering if it might be better to answer it offline, or if you want to try and come back around and answer his question about the PPP.
And
it's in the
sure.
good questions now.
I mean, let me put it this way. I don't know if I'm fully understanding it, but I would say this: whether or not, if you've received standard unemployment benefits, that doesn't mean you're ineligible necessarily. If you meet the other eligibility requirements and you have lost income that is more than $1,500, and that income is not eligible for the standard unemployment benefits, you can apply for that to mitigate that lost income. So having received unemployment assistance does not automatically make you ineligible. That's really more about the income that you can apply, that you can use in your application when you're attesting that you have lost more than $1,500.
So I guess the example would be, this is Jen again, if you have a part-time or full-time position, let's say at a cultural organization, and that through that position you experience layoffs or furloughs and you're collecting unemployment for that, that doesn't mean that if you're also selling your work as an individual, if you're also teaching contract gigs on the side, if you lost that income, that's the income you want to report in this form, because that's the income, that's still lost income. So everyone tends to wear 3 or 4 hats. So in this case, you want to focus on the income that you lost that is not part of like a full-time or part-time kind of position. It's really more of the contract gig kind of work. So you want to focus on that income.
Thank you, Jen. I'm not sure if we've, somebody asked, can I use my profile created for the LCC program? Unfortunately, no, that's a different, it's a different system that we used for that one. So you could reuse the same one, but you'll have to reuse the same username and password, but you'll have to create a new profile for this system. Okay. So are there any other questions? I will mention, please get in touch with us. The grant is open until February 2nd. It's really important to us that it's an easy process for folks. And if you do run into issues, we want to do everything we can to help you. So please don't be dissuaded. Get in touch with us. That's our whole job, is to help you apply to these programs like this. So Carmen, my colleague, just put my email in the chat. You can also find it on massculturalcouncil.org, and we are pleased to help you with any questions about this program, or if you have questions about other offerings from Mass Cultural Council for individuals. Someone, I just saw something in a question in the Q&A. Do canceled workshops count as lost income? Yes, it would. I mean, if it was a workshop for which, if it was a workshop in the arts or in culture, and you were hired to to teach or administer that workshop, and now you've lost that income because it was canceled, yes, absolutely, that would be a loss that you could include in this program.
Dan?
Yes.
This is Timothea. I'm a program officer with the Community Initiative. There is one more question in the Q&A, and it is the grant considered taxable income?
Thanks. This is Dan again. I really appreciate it, Timothea. It is indeed considered taxable income. So you'll have to keep that in mind when you're doing, if you are selected as one of the recipients, that is something that you'll need to keep in mind come tax time next year.